It's been an eventful week here at our offices. I was up late last night, which is always fun because I'm an old man, right? I go to bed super early, usually by 9 o'clock. I was out on site until about 10:30 last night because we had a break-in at one of our properties, which is always fun. There's always something going on in real estate, and hey, at least it keeps things interesting. Anyway, we ended up having about 6 or 7 police cars show up. It looked like a presidential procession coming down Dickerson Pike last night because they brought a whole bunch of police officers, they brought a K-9 unit, and they surrounded the building, and fortunately no one was still in there when we got there, but you never know, gotta make sure. So that was the call that I got last night. Anyway, that's not why we're here. Let's dive into possibly the best investment strategy for commercial real estate, at least in my opinion, as is just about everything on this channel, it is in my opinion. So there are many different ways that you can get started in commercial real estate or, blossom your career. To be honest with you, you've got single tenant net leases, you've got ground up development, you've got BRRRR, which is Julian's favorite strategy. You name it, there's probably a strategy out there for it. But this is a method that a lot of people don't talk about very often, and at least not in like some official capacity, because this strategy is what I believe single-handedly contributed to our growing as a company as rapidly as we have. I mean, it's how we went from having 0 properties at the beginning of 2019 to having everything that we've got now, over 550,000 square feet of office and retail in the state of Tennessee. And I'm calling it the neighborhood niche. So I first stumbled upon this strategy when I started my commercial real estate brokerage. I had always had an affinity for East Nashville, and I thought that it was such a cool side of town. I went and had drinks at a bar over here called Crying Wolf, and to me, it just felt like home. It's got all of the cool food and beverage concepts. You've got some amazing business owners, and it's a very historic side of Nashville, so you've got some beautiful homes throughout the neighborhood. It just adds to this character that I feel is relatively unparalleled in the rest of Nashville. So when I started my commercial real estate brokerage, I decided to move over here, and I moved my brokerage over here. And we started to focus almost exclusively, immediately, in East Nashville. We found our neighborhood and niche down into it. Now, because I started the firm early, I was like 26 when I started my brokerage, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to compete with the big boys, the CBREs, Avis & Youngs, Cushman Wakefields of the world. Because at the end of the day, they've got more brokers, they've got more data, at least they did when I first started out. So I figured I'm gonna go find my blue ocean. Highly recommend you check out that book, Blue Ocean Strategy. It is phenomenal. So your blue ocean is where no sharks are, right? You are free to swim around and do whatever you want, and all of the food, the resources, the deals in that area are yours because you don't really have any competition. You want to stay away from the red ocean. That's where all the blood is in the water. Everybody's going after the same resources, the same deals. So why compete when you don't have to? When I did that, nobody in Nashville at the time was really focusing on neighborhoods, let alone East Nashville. East Nashville was an emerging side of town that a lot of brokers just didn't feel was worth even looking at because the deals were smaller. Well, the great thing about that for me was since I had a boutique commercial brokerage and I was getting, 100% of the commissions minus all of my expenses, I didn't have to give any to the house. I was able to do smaller deals and get just as much or not more in income than all of these bigger brokers would have to do. And I've done that in many different ways across all of our companies, right? So I've niched down into East Nashville. I niche down into small business specifically. We won't take on corporate tenants. I niche down into micro units, which again, a lot of brokerages won't take on, but if you set up the right systems, it's very easy to figure out. I ended up doing that with my property management company. We also started managing almost exclusively in East Nashville and Madison. Well, because of that, we gained market share. And driving down Dickerson Pike or Gallatin Avenue, you start to see my signs everywhere. Which, think about this, if you've got 10 listings and they're spread out all across town, the chances of somebody driving past 2 of your signs is pretty slim. But if you've got 10 signs that are spread out on 2 corridors in one neighborhood, chances of people seeing your name day in and day out are really good. And that ended up benefiting us pretty significantly, because when I started investing and developing commercial real estate, everybody thought of me whenever they thought of East Nashville. So anytime a property came available, anytime a property owner wanted to sell or seek advice on their property, or anytime anybody needed management or they wanted to partner on a deal on this side of town, they called me. I didn't even have to go out and market anymore. I haven't cold called in years. The deals kind of come to me because of the niche that I've created. I'm known as the East Nashville commercial real estate broker. So if you're doing commercial real estate on this side of town, you're probably gonna call me. Another excellent book on this strategy is actually by a local Nashville developer that I admire. His name is Mark Deutschman, and his book is 1 Mile Radius. Mark is another developer that is a champion for greenways here in Nashville and sustainable community-oriented development, which obviously we focus on, but that is a rare commodity in commercial real estate development. In Mark's book, he talks about the importance of diving into your neighborhood and becoming the expert on that 1 mile radius. He literally started out in Hillsborough Village here in Nashville and focused on that 1 mile radius when he was a real estate agent. And because of that, he became known as the real estate guy in Hillsborough Village. So anytime anybody wanted to sell a home or commercial property came available or whatever, Mark was the guy that they called. So he goes into depth in that in his book, and I think it's such a phenomenal approach to real estate, because any way that you can differentiate yourself, whether you're a broker, a property manager, a developer, or just an investor, any way that you can differentiate yourself from everyone else is going to give you a leg up on the competition. And so when a lot of people are swinging left, I'm going to swing right and see what I can find over here that is going to work better for me. Because at the end of the day, I don't have to make more money to be more profitable if I've got the right setup. So that's ultimately what I found. I actually didn't meet Mark until a couple of years ago, but he and I kind of ran this parallel thought pattern where, let's focus in on a neighborhood and become the expert. So again, whenever business owners, realtors, other commercial brokers, investors wanted to come to East Nashville, they thought of me. And it ended up being the best investment strategy that we ever had, because once you become known as that person, not only do you get deals that no one else will ever see because they're off market or whatever, you actually start to reach a critical mass for your own investments. So back in August of this year, I closed on a hotel on Dickerson Pike. And we closed it down. We're going through renovations. Did we do a video on Salt Ranch yet?
Yeah, we've done a few.
We've done a video on Salt Ranch. Check this out here. We've done so many videos, I don't even remember what videos we've done anymore. But yeah, check out that video. So we closed on Salt Ranch and back in August, and across the street, we are actually buying another 2.3 acres where we're planning restaurants and retail. Well, there's not a whole lot else in that area, right? But because we are doing 2 projects at once, there's actually another 147 unit apartment complex going up here, and there's a 300 unit apartment complex going up here. Now we've helped create this critical mass in this 1/10 of a mile radius, which means everything for your tenants. It means everything for your returns as an investor. It just makes the deal a lot easier, especially when you're going to investors, right? And you're raising capital, or you're going to lenders and trying to get them to give you debt. If you are the expert on a corridor and you can prove that through all of the projects that you've done over there, it's gonna be tough for them to say no to you, right? Because you probably know what you're talking about. And because of that too, we actually create all of our own data on the neighborhood. One thing that's very frustrating when you start investing outside of a market that you're not familiar with is you have to find lease comps and you have to find sales comps. And that can often be very difficult in commercial real estate unless you're using CRS data for sales comps, which we love. check out the link in the description below for 10% off your membership with them. But they have the best access to tax record data that I have found. So instead of having to rely on third-party sources or doing all of this data to find all of your own comps, we're actually setting our own comps. So I don't have to pay for all these third-party services to determine whether or not I think that I'm right. I actually know because I've been involved in a majority of the deals and transactions along the corridor. So when I'm looking at a project, I can tell almost immediately without even having to do little back of napkin numbers or underwriting whether that dog will hunt or not. As they say, the riches are in the niches, even though it's really pronounced niche, but I guess riches in the niches didn't sound as good. Yeah, Dr. Seuss over here. So look, if you're struggling as a commercial real estate investor and you don't know what strategy is right with you, I would highly recommend giving the neighborhood niche a shot. Find one area, become the absolute expert on that area where you know the sales price per square foot of buildings, what it costs per square foot to build in that area, what utility issues that you're going to face, what environmental issues you're going to face, what everything will rent for. Become the person, the expert on that area, and I am willing to bet that your investment career will change. Boom, that's it. Value bomb.